Welcome back. Doctors in Georgia have delivered the baby of a brain-dead woman who has been on life support since January. They performed the emergency C-section last week. 31-year-old Adriana Smith started having intense headaches while she was 8 weeks pregnant 4 months ago. She went to the hospital in Atlanta where she got medication and was released. The next morning, her boyfriend woke up to her gasping for air and called 911. Emory University Hospital determined that she had blood clots in her brain, and she was then declared brain dead. But hospital officials said that they couldn't remove devices that were keeping her breathing because of state laws that ban abortion after a baby's heartbeat is detected, usually around 6 weeks.
Joining us this morning to weigh in on this really sad topic this morning, our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes. Khalif, nice to have you this morning. So this is interesting. Georgia law saying that a fetus is a person early on, and sometimes a heartbeat can be detected as early as 6 weeks. Did doctors in this case, did they literally have no choice?
That's what Emory believed. I mean, if you're in that room in the discussion, obviously you're having the medical discussion of what to do and how to save the woman. And then you recognize that, okay, she's 8 weeks pregnant, and then now she's brain dead. And you start having those discussions. Medically, what can you do? But then I'm sure that legal folks came in the room and said, well, now legally, what can we do? We have this new law that's been implemented in our state. We need to figure out, well, what are our actions and what would be the consequences of some of the actions. I would imagine there was a lot of risk management and discussion in there specifically. Can we be sued? Can we be fined? Can we be shut down? What are our limitations? What opportunities can we have? And I guarantee doctors don't want to be in that kind of conversation. But if you are the chief of the hospital, if you're someone that's the chief resident or in charge of making those decisions, I can guarantee you would have had to have a discussion with anybody of your in-house counsel or outside counsel to advise you on how to move. Having the conversation would have said, hey, this is kind of an unknown and gray area right now, A, because it's so new, B, because there's no precedent that gives you guidance on what to do. And if you want to be safer than sorry, it would make sense to not do anything, keep her on life support, and allow, the system to keep her breathing as opposed to removing her, because what it says is the statute or the law there, Georgia says, with the purpose to terminate the pregnancy. And so if you're looking at the plain language of the law, well, if I take her off of life support, the pregnancy will be terminated. Well, as the Attorney General said, it has to be with the purpose of terminating. I wouldn't have wanted to be in that room to have to make that decision, and I don't think folks should be having to make those decisions. But at the end of the day, they were properly advised, I think, to keep her on life support because of the law at the time.
And I'm glad you brought that up. So the Georgia Republican Attorney General, Chris Carr here, he issued a statement after the fact of all this when news outlets reached out saying that the law did not require medical professionals to keep a woman breathing, declared brain dead, on life support. But as you mentioned, this really creates that gray area. What kind of struggles will this create for legal representatives and medical professionals?
I think significantly more. I mean, and it opens them up to a number of things. So in that room, you talk about a couple conversations. What are our options for her medically? What are our options for her legally? And then what can happen to us legally down the road if we act and if we don't act? So on the one side, if we act, she obviously will be taken off life support and she will die, and then the baby will die. Now, can we be sued? Can we be, fined? Can we lose any type of licenses from the state? On the other hand, if we leave her on life support, what type of damage are we doing to the family who now may sue us for the trauma that we've inflicted on them? And so both roads lead to some type of liability. None of these situations are good situations to have the hospital or the family in, and you've taken now the decision of should she be able to continue on life support away from the family. If the baby was removed and this was just a normal person there with no child, a family, a proxy would be able to step in and say, we know what my child wanted and this would have been the best situation. We want to keep her on it or we don't. So now you've removed multiple decisions and you put them in a position where I got to come here every day for the last, 4 months to see my daughter that I know is not going to make it at the end of this and will birth a child that ultimately may not make it either. I mean, all the reports early on was saying that the child had a number of other issues connected to the mother's blood clots and all that she was having. So this is the type of things that folks talk about in this situation where you want to have these discussions with your medical professional. You don't want to have these discussions with your elected officials. And that's when you see that running into a situation here where it played out in real time. And it's just extremely unfortunate. But I would say if I have a crystal ball, if I'm a gambling man, in the next couple of months, you will see some type of lawsuit stemming from this towards the hospital. And they are, I would have assumed, predicted that would come down the road.
And the baby, by the way, the baby's name is Chance, is still alive and probably has a long medical road ahead of it. I'm curious, this is not even really a national debate on reproductive rights. That's its own thing. But when it comes to North South Carolina, I mean, what are those end of life type of rights that we need to be aware of if this were to ever happen?
You're in the same situation. I mean, this is really a time frame thing. I mean, because if she would have went to the hospital 2 weeks before, maybe 2.5 weeks before, this wouldn't even be a discussion. She was 8 weeks pregnant, not 6 weeks pregnant. At that time frame, they would have been able to have a different discussion, and she would have been below the threshold. And so we're grabbing these arbitrary numbers, but didn't have real life consequences. And that's the thing. And even if she was state to state, say if she was in another state like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, somewhere else, and not right there in Georgia, a different consequence. And so those are really where we have these discussions about this type of thing. Folks have to contemplate the secondary effects, which is we didn't intend for something like this to happen. If you whatever side of the aisle you are, you didn't anticipate having a family deal with this for the last 4 months.
Yeah. All right. Well, certainly a sad topic to talk about this morning, but definitely some real world consequences from that. So, Khalif, thank you so much.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.